You know that feeling, right? That sudden heart-jolting alarm when traffic just screeches to a halt in front of you. Or maybe it's that persistent, like, low-grade hum of worry about a looming deadline or, I don't know, a tough conversation you need to have. We call it stress. But what's really happening inside your body in those moments, it's actually far more profound than just a fleeting emotion. Today, we're taking a deep dive into stress and physical health, how your body reacts to pressure explained.
Our mission, to really peel back the layers and, unpack the surprising ways your body responds to pressure. We're talking everything from subtle shifts in your brain right down to widespread physical effects you might never even attribute to stress. Yeah, we're not just talking about feelings here. We're talking about actual, tangible changes to your physiology. So, to really get into this, we first need to be super clear on our terms. Because is stress really just another word for, say, fear? Or is there something maybe more nuanced going on?
That's a really excellent distinction to start with. We often use stress, fear, and anxiety almost interchangeably in everyday talk, but neurologically, physiologically, they're distinct. Fear is that primal immediate alarm, your automatic fight or flight kicking in response to a present danger. Think, like you said, slam on the brakes. It's right now. Anxiety, though, is kind of its future-oriented cousin. It's more of a mood state about anticipating threats, whether they're real or just perceived. Your body still gears up, absolutely, but it's a more complex reaction involving cognitive, emotional, and physical prep for something that might happen down the road. And, pathological anxiety often involves a significant overestimation of that perceived future threat.
Right. So if anxiety is about anticipating something bad, does that mean all stress is inherently negative? What about those times when stress actually feels, almost helpful? Like you hear about athletes having pregame jitters that sharpen their focus, or that pressure before a big presentation that makes you perform better. Is that still stress, and how can that actually be a good thing?
That's a crucial point. Absolutely. Not all stress is bad for you. Hans Selye, who was really a pioneer in stress research, he made this vital distinction between eustress and distress. Eustress refers to those stressors that are actually enjoyable or inspiring, the kind that sharpen your focus, give you a buzz, energize you. Think of it like hitting a sweet spot. Optimal performance often requires some level of arousal, some activation, that nervous excitement before you go on stage, or the thrill of tackling a challenging project that can actually boost your energy, be good for your cardiovascular system short term, even sharpen your thinking. It's really only when that arousal becomes too high or goes on for too long, what Selye called distress, that it starts to become detrimental, leading towards anxiety, burnout, or withdrawal. So yeah, short-term sympathetic activation definitely can be beneficial.
Okay, this next point is something I think, a lot of us probably wonder about. Why does one person seem to just thrive under immense pressure, almost effortlessly it seems, while someone else might completely crumble under similar circumstances?
That brings us right to the core concept of homeostasis. You can kind of imagine your body like a finely tuned instrument, always trying to maintain balance, stay in an optimal state. That's homeostasis. Stressors, though, are like something suddenly disrupting that balance, throwing it off kilter. And your body's entire effort to restore that equilibrium, to get back to that balanced state, the whole process is the stress response. And it consumes a massive amount of energy and resources. We also really need to differentiate between acute stress and chronic stress. Acute is short-term, like that quick jolt when you nearly have an accident. Your body's built to handle that, recover quickly. But chronic stress, that's different. It's sustained pressure over long periods. Think about being a long-term caregiver for a spouse with dementia, or the enduring impact of experiencing something deeply traumatic like a sexual assault. That kind of relentless stress tends to have far more negative impacts because it just constantly depletes the body's energy reserves, drains its resources, and over time it can really make you sick.
Wow, that sounds like a pretty profound and often exhausting biological journey the body goes on. So for us just living our daily lives, how do we spot the warning signs? What are some of those common, maybe even subtle symptoms that might signal we're deeper into that chronic stress process than we maybe realize?
Well, when stress persists, your body moves through this predictable pattern that Hans Selye identified called the General Adaptation Syndrome, or GAS for short. It basically outlines how your body tries to cope, and eventually, if the stress doesn't let up, how it can break down. It has 3 distinct phases. First up is the alarm phase. This is that initial shock. You might have a very brief drop in resistance, but then almost immediately your body's central command system for stress, the HPA axis, which connects your brain and adrenal glands, it kicks into high gear. Your sympathetic nervous system floods your body with catecholamines, like adrenaline, and that's your classic fight or flight response. Muscles tense up. Heart rate and blood pressure shoot up. You get a surge of glucose for quick energy. Cortisol, the main stress hormone, also starts to rise.
Okay, that's the immediate reaction. What happens if the stressful situation doesn't just go away?
Right. If the stressor continues, you move into the second phase, resistance. Here, your body is actively trying to cope, to adapt to this ongoing pressure. Cortisol levels often remain high, trying to keep you fueled by mobilizing glucose, fats, and amino acids. But this isn't sustainable long term. Your body is burning through its chemical resources, trying to maintain this heightened state of alert. It's working overtime.
I'm guessing that can't go on forever.
Exactly. If the threat persists and your body's resources become depleted, you eventually enter the exhaustion phase. This is where the really serious long-term negative consequences start to show up. Your body simply can't maintain that resistance anymore. Its defenses are down, and this can lead directly to illness, fatigue, burnout, even serious health problems.
That's a pretty intense internal process.
Yeah.
So what does this actually feel like day to day? What are the tangible signs we should be looking out for?
Well, beyond just feeling stressed, the key insight is that chronic stress puts your body in this constant state of internal alarm, almost like an engine that's always idling way too high. And eventually, pretty much every system starts to protest in noticeable ways. You'll likely feel it in your muscles first. Things like persistent headaches, maybe dizziness, jaw clenching, or teeth grinding, especially at night. Or just that deep ache in your shoulders, neck, and back because your muscles are constantly tensed up. They never fully relax. Your cardiovascular system is definitely taking a hit. Increased heart rate, palpitations you can feel, maybe even chest pain, or feeling of heaviness. And the scary part is, over time, this chronic stress silently constricts blood vessels, fuels inflammation, contributes to fat buildup in arteries.
Which seriously raises the risk for major issues, right?
Absolutely. Significantly raises your risk for heart disease, high blood pressure, abnormal heart rhythms, heart attacks, even strokes. It's a major, major factor. Then there's your respiratory system. You might notice shortness of breath or just breathing more rapidly than usual. And for people with existing conditions like asthma, stress can be a major trigger or can even contribute to panic attacks. Your digestive system is often one of the first places to complain. Upset stomach, nausea, sometimes vomiting, diarrhea, or the opposite, constipation. That nagging heartburn or acid reflux, often fueled by increased stomach acid due to stress. And it can definitely worsen existing conditions like ulcers or irritable bowel syndrome causing flare-ups.
Wow, okay. What about our ability to fight off illness?
Great question. Initially, a short burst of stress can actually stimulate the immune system. But chronic stress, it does the opposite. It significantly weakens your defenses. This makes you much more susceptible to catching every virus going around the flu, the common cold. It can even reactivate dormant viruses like herpes simplex, cold sores or shingles, and it slows down your recovery time from any illness or injury. And perhaps surprisingly, it can even show up on your skin and hair. We see links between chronic stress and flare-ups of acne, psoriasis, eczema, and in some cases, even permanent hair loss.
And what about more intimate aspects of health, like sexual reproductive function?
Yes, that's significantly impacted too. A loss of sexual desire is very common under chronic stress for both men and women. For men, while a very short-term stressor might briefly increase testosterone, chronic stress typically causes levels to drop. It can interfere with sperm production and quality and contribute to erectile dysfunction or impotence. There's also an increased risk of infections in the reproductive organs. For women, chronic stress can lead to irregular periods, sometimes heavier or more painful ones. It can also significantly magnify the uncomfortable symptoms associated with menopause.
We've really covered how profoundly stress manifests physically, sometimes in ways we wouldn't even connect. But what about, the control center, our minds? How does this constant internal red alert really impact our thoughts, our emotions, our overall mental state?
Oh, the psychological and cognitive effects are absolutely profound and tightly linked to the physical ones. You might find yourself feeling much more emotional than usual, perhaps easily irritable, grumpy, maybe more teary or quick to anger. Feelings of anxiety, being overwhelmed, persistent sadness, and even clinical depression are very common companions to chronic stress. Cognitively, it really gums up the works. You might experience restlessness, have real trouble concentrating or focusing, notice memory problems like, where did I put my keys again? Find it hard to make decisions, or just feel constantly on edge, hypervigilant, scanning for threats.
That sounds incredibly draining.
It is, and it's important to remember that anxiety disorders themselves are among the most common psychiatric conditions, yet they often fly under the radar, undiagnosed. Their origins, their etiology, it's complex. It usually involves an interaction between some level of genetic vulnerability and exposure to significant stressful or traumatic life experiences. Other factors like certain medications, substance abuse, even difficult childhood experiences can contribute. And we do see a higher prevalence in females, roughly a 2-to-1 ratio compared to males, actually. But the bottom line is chronic or severe stress is undeniably a major risk factor for developing serious mental health conditions like depression, anxiety disorders, and in some very severe, prolonged cases, it can even contribute to delusional thinking. We see this very clearly with conditions like PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, which develops specifically in the aftermath of traumatic events.
This definitely raises a crucial question. How does all of this interact with something as basic and essential as sleep? I mean, I can't imagine that being in a constant state of internal alarm is exactly conducive to getting a good night's rest.
You are absolutely right. The relationship between stress and sleep is, well, researchers have called it unequivocally dysbiotic, which basically means it's deeply unhealthy and disruptive. It's a toxic relationship. Exposure to stressful events, whether we're talking major life changes or just the accumulation of daily hassles, it directly impairs normal sleep function. Your sleep architecture gets messed up. But here's a really crucial insight. Not everyone reacts the same way. Some of us seem to have what researchers call higher sleep reactivity. Think of it as sort of like a pre-existing sensitivity, almost a trait in our individual sleep systems. Some sleep systems are just naturally more vulnerable to being disrupted by stress than others.
So some people are just wired to lose sleep more easily when stressed.
Exactly. Individuals with higher premorbid sleep reactivity, meaning this vulnerability exists before they develop sleep problems, are at a significantly increased risk of developing insomnia when they encounter stress. And what's even more compelling, maybe a bit sobering, is this concept called the scarring effect. It suggests that experiencing significant stress and developing insomnia can actually increase your sleep reactivity, even if you started out with low reactivity. It's like the experience itself leaves a scar on your sleep system, making it more fragile, more sensitive to future stressors. And this change, the sensitization, can persist even after the insomnia seems to have resolved. Your sleep system remains hyperreactive.
Wow, that's quite something. So it's not just a temporary disruption.
It might not be, no. Furthermore, our cognitive and emotional reactions to stress play a huge role here, particularly rumination. Those repetitive, often negative thoughts that just cycle endlessly in your mind, especially when you're trying to fall asleep. That kind of pre-sleep rumination is a massive amplifier for insomnia risk, especially for sleep-onset insomnia, meaning difficulty actually falling asleep in the first place. Studies suggest that highly reactive sleepers experiencing stress might take, say, 65 to 68 minutes on average to fall asleep, compared to maybe 37 to 44 minutes for non-reactive sleepers under similar stress. That churning mind is keeping them awake. We also see some potential physiological markers like REM sleep instability, meaning shorter, more fragmented REM sleep cycles, and more frequent awakenings during REM sleep, particularly in these highly reactive sleepers who develop chronic insomnia.
Okay, so it's clear stress doesn't just disrupt our sleep temporarily. For some, it can fundamentally rewire the sleep system, making us perpetually more vulnerable. Given this really widespread, often hidden impact of stress on, well, practically every facet of our health, from our heart to our head to our sleep, the big question becomes, what agency do we have? What can we actually do to build some resilience against this seemingly pervasive pressure?
That really is the empowering part of the conversation. Stress management isn't just a nice to have, it's an integral part of what we call lifestyle medicine. And the most effective way to approach it is usually with a multimodal strategy. Think of it like building a personalized stress toolkit, or maybe like diversifying an investment portfolio for your well-being. Combining different strategies tends to work synergistically, offering a much better buffer against stress than relying on just one single solution.
Right, not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Ah.
So what are some key components of that toolkit?
Okay, first, let's talk nutrition. There's a really strong scientific consensus now that consuming predominantly whole, plant-rich foods has profoundly positive health outcomes overall, and that includes stress resilience. For instance, some studies have associated vegetarian diets with lower reported stress levels. Part of this might be due to what's called the psychobiotic effect. Essentially, your gut microbiome, the trillions of bacteria living in your gut, is profoundly influenced by what you eat. High-fiber, plant-based diets tend to promote a healthier gut microbiota.
And the gut talks to the brain, right?
Exactly. Your gut microbiota influences brain function through various pathways: neural, hormonal, immune. It's often called the second brain for good reason. So, feeding your gut well can actually help regulate your mood and stress response. Then there's social connection. Humans are fundamentally deeply wired for social connection. It's not just pleasant, it's a biological necessity. Strong social support acts as a powerful buffer against the negative effects of stress on both our mental and physical health. It's fascinating. There's this tend and befriend pattern, often seen more in women, but present in all genders, where stress actually prompts seeking out social connection rather than just fight or flight. And it doesn't always have to be deep connection. Even brief, positive social interactions, what some researchers call micro moments of connection with acquaintances, like chatting with a barista or a neighbor, can produce measurable positive health benefits. Don't underestimate those small daily interactions.
That's really encouraging. What about practices like mindfulness? We hear a lot about that.
Yes. Mind-body practices, with mindfulness being a prime example, are incredibly effective. They work by actively engaging your body's natural relaxation response, which is basically the physiological opposite of the stress response. In the short term, practicing mindfulness can lead to things like a slowed heart rate, lower blood pressure, reduced cortisol levels, even improved cognitive function like focus, and just a lower feeling of perceived stress. But the really remarkable benefits often emerge with consistent long-term practice. We're talking daily practice over weeks or months. Research suggests this can lead to improved immune function, potentially even the reversal of telomere shortening.
Whoa, telomeres. Those are linked to aging, right?
They are the protective caps on our chromosomes. It's fascinating research suggesting mindfulness might impact cellular aging. Other long-term benefits include potential epigenetic modifications, changes in how your genes are expressed, and even measurable growth in brain areas like the hippocampus, crucial for memory and learning, and parts of the prefrontal cortex involved in emotional regulation and positive mood. Plus, improved function of the amygdala, helping to better regulate fear responses.
So what does mindfulness actually involve? Does it mean sitting on a cushion for an hour?
Not necessarily at all. Mindfulness, at its core, is simply about paying non-judgmental, focused attention to the present moment. You can integrate it into daily life very easily. Simple examples. Taking a minute for a brief mindful stretch, really feeling the sensations, or focusing on the physical sensation of your feet hitting the ground while you're walking. You can even practice mindfulness while washing dishes, just noticing the warmth of the water, the smell of the soap, the feel of the plates. Techniques like box breathing, inhaling for 4, holding for 4, exhaling for 4, holding for 4, or doing a quick body scan, mentally checking in with different parts of your body can be done in just a couple of minutes anywhere. There is an important caveat, though. For individuals with a history of significant emotional trauma, traditional stillness-based mindfulness can sometimes be challenging or even triggering. In those cases, it's really recommended to coordinate with a mental health professional. Mindful movement practices like yoga or tai chi are often a gentler, lower-risk alternative to start with.
That's a really important point. Okay, any other key strategies?
One more crucial one: avoidance of risky substances. There's a very strong link between stress and increased use of, dependence on, and relapse with substances like alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. People often turn to these substances as a way to cope with stress, but they typically only offer a very temporary reprieve and often end up exacerbating the underlying problems and creating new ones in the long run. So managing stress effectively through healthier means can really reduce the reliance on these risky coping mechanisms.
Right. So it really sounds like building a personalized toolkit, combining different approaches that work for you is absolutely key here.
That's exactly it. Stress, it's an inescapable part of modern life. We can't eliminate it entirely. But, and this is the crucial part, your body's reaction to it and how you manage it are very much within your sphere of influence. Understanding these profound physical and mental impacts we've discussed, from your heart and muscles to your gut, your immune system, and especially your sleep, that understanding is really the first most powerful step towards taking agency. You genuinely have more control than you might think.
So knowing now that your body isn't just reacting passively, but is potentially being actively transformed by stress, and that your sleep system might have its own unique sensitivity, maybe the question to ask yourself is, what's one small intentional step you could take today? Maybe just to understand, or even gently begin to shift, your own body's amazing complex response to pressure. Perhaps it's as simple as noticing when your jaw clenches during the day, or taking literally one single mindful breath when you feel overwhelmed. We really hope this deep dive helps you navigate the pressures of life with a bit more understanding, maybe a little more compassion for yourself, and empowers you to start building your own unique resilience toolkit. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.